dude. Nah. Nah.
There you go. You can hear it has a little voice now.
Got it.
We have Craig Bierko here with us, starring Cinderella Man as Max Baer, Doug in the 13th Floor, and of course Tom Ryan in Scary Movie 4. I apologize if I forgot anything else. There's
many other things.
Many other things. Projects. You played Miss Trunchbull in Matilda.
Absolutely. Enough. That's fine.
Is that true? You played Matilda in a stage adaptation?
Well, I was in the play Matilda, and I played who's the big woman?
Trunchbull. Agatha Trunchbull.
Trunchbull. I did Trunchbull for about a month and a half on Broadway, and I got hurt. There were stunts, you know. There were. Did you see it? I can't imagine you guys.
I've seen the film. Yeah, it was the first film I saw in the cinema. There's a scene where
This was a. We're not good at the not talking over each other. It's just gonna be one silent buzz. That's what you're just one song. Yeah. They cast me in Matilda as Trunchbull, and I replaced the original guy. And they were very specific about what they wanted, and it was different than what he did. And the one thing I couldn't quite understand was they had all this stunt work. And at one point I had to run and do like a flip over a horse, you know, not a horse, but like a gym horse, you know? And I just I didn't understand why. I almost broke my neck trying to figure out, you know, and working with a trainer, like to do that, they trained me really hard. And it's really hard to do that kind of thing anyway, to replace somebody, because you're basically just, it's not like you're being put in, it's not like you're rehearsing a play. There's a guy with a clipboard just sort of going, and you walk right over there and you stop. You say the line. Yes, go step forward, around the desk. No, right, take a right, go back around again, go right, stop, light hits you, sing the song, not now. When we do it, then you walk. It's like, it was horrifying. Day after day after day for like a month, never really looking at anybody. And then getting on stage with these kids who've been rehearsed, so that if you don't say a line exactly the way you rehearsed it, or they've rehearsed it, or the guy before that they've been doing it with for a year, you don't do it exactly the same way, they just stare at you like something out of, Westworld or something. And then I try to figure out what was going on, and then I go, oh, I inverted the line, and I turn it around, and the kid would like boot up again and just start talking, and then just go, it was. I didn't enjoy it. I was kind of happy.
So is it more nerve-wracking doing a theatre or standing in front of cameras reading the lines?
Which one do I prefer? You mean?
What's more nerve-wracking? I'd say standing on stage doing the lines is more nerve-wracking. To me, it would be.
It's all preparation, and I think by the time I got out on stage, I mean, it was a bit nerve-wracking because with that particular show, that's an anomaly. So it really doesn't really matter, because that was such an odd experience, an odd way to be integrated into a show. But normally, if you've got a good director for either one, you're going to be prepared, when you get there. I mean, I did a play years ago. I don't think it gets done much in England, but it's very popular here, and they're about to open another revival of it. But I did a revival about 20 years ago of a play called The Music Man here, and the woman who directed that, Susan Stroman, there was a lot, and it was like 2.5 hours of just constant moving. It was really, really challenging and great. It was really great, but it was a lot to do. But because she was such a good director, I couldn't wait for the curtain to go up, So it wasn't so much nerves. I mean, those could happen. I think they're both really challenging. And both and they demand that you prepare. I mean, I'm just about to start preparing for something. It's an episode of a show. And it's a great part, but there's so much. Every time I talk, it's like a paragraph that size, So the only thing is, I'm glad I've got like 2 weeks, 3 weeks to prepare. and you just got to, just so that when you walk on the set, you're not even thinking about what your lines are. Like you're just kind of relaxed, so that anything that's, any noise, any distraction, because a lot of times when you do stuff like that, you're working so quickly, you don't really get to meet the people that you're working with until you're actually out in front of the camera. That can be a little strange, but you have to be a pro. And the only way to prepare for that is what is it that you can control? I can control having my lines prepared. I can control having, knowing what I want to do with the character and all that. And everything else is going to be, it's going to be difficult enough, learning your blocking really quickly. And then depending on which way the director works, sometimes you'll learn, you'll get out there, they'll give you the direction, and then you'll shoot, and then they'll go to the next scene. Sometimes they'll give you direction, and then you'll go away while they light everything. And now you've got another hour and a half to just sort of sit, figure out how you're going to do it, but at least you've gotten to meet somebody. There's no telling which way it's going to be. And then sometimes if you're on a show or a movie, that it'll be a little bit of both, and you never know quite what to expect. They bring in different directors sometimes. Anyway,
how did you start out?
Neither are they're not easy, But I think one of the reasons I started doing this was I really liked doing it and felt pretty good at it. But I think I also like the fact that it didn't feel like work, and that I could cut it. In some way, it felt like I was cutting corners in life, but nobody gets to cut corners.
So did you start out originally on Broadway, or were you straight on TV film?
I think professionally, I started getting work. I did some stage work, but smaller stuff, and then but I think I started working more in TV and film, and that's really what I wanted to do. So after college, I went out to Los Angeles, and I was there for about 12 years, made some noise and had a great time, and, came back to New York to do this play, the Music Man, which was around 2000. And my family lives here in New York. So I just stayed, and I like it. It was easier. And I realized, I don't much care for Los Angeles, and I much prefer it here in New York.
I don't know if it's
I started, I would say I worked, it's definitely the front end of my career was definitely film and TV. And now that I'm here in New York, it's really the only place where, not the only place, there's theater. Well, now there's practically none anywhere. I mean, hopefully it's waking up a little bit, but I was doing a lot of theater back here. And right before the pandemic, I was doing a play.
Yeah, cool. So what got you into sci-fi, like with the 13th Floor? How did that come about?
It's actually, I don't know if it's a funny story, but it's not even a great story if there are any young actors out there. I'm not proud, but like sometimes I get a script and it would be like the night before the audition, and you really didn't have time to fully prepare, and you had them, maybe you'd had a lot of material to prepare, which I did for this. So I didn't get to read the whole script. So I just read through the material and I learned the material, but I had no idea what was going on. No idea whatsoever. Can you imagine? I mean, I don't remember what lines there were, but it was like it was a scene with her at the end, a scene with me with, the Vincent D'Onofrio character, Whitney, where he's my best friend with the long hair. And then a scene with a guy named Avery, who's like the bad guy. And I didn't even know they were the same guy. I didn't even know they were both Vincent D'Onofrio. And I didn't know I thought I'd gone back in time, but I didn't know the whole compute that was just in a computer. It was very strange because the Matrix hadn't come out yet. So, it really was a whole new way of thinking, dramatically. I mean, this idea of the same guy going through a portal into a game or a reality that wasn't actually the past. I mean, I'd seen time travel stuff or size reduction or whatever it was, and they inject, what's that movie called, or they inject like they reduce everybody to size and they inject them into the bloodstream. Did you ever see that movie? Raquel Welch. like tiny little doctors, and this guy had this disease, so they went in there to go like to cure his disease.
I've seen an episode of Rick and Morty where they go into Santa.
Did they go to Santa?
Oh, it's fucked up.
Yeah. They did it straight, and it was I can't remember what it was called, but it was, I'd seen plenty of stuff like that, but this was kind of mind bending. And then when I got it, which was really strange, I asked them, why did you choose me? And they said, well, you were making choices that no one else made in the audition. And I was like, yeah, because they prepared.
You know,
Because I didn't prepare. Bad message to send somebody whose default position is laziness. You know,
you're good in it though, for sure. Like, I was watching it last night, and one of the scenes that stuck out the most.
Took it very seriously, and they were on my ass. I mean, more than any movie I had done up to that point. They were very mindful of, this is the guy who's going to go after. I mean, you know, it was actually the first big lead that I'd had. So they were mindful of, once you're done with the movie, then you got to be the guy who goes out and sells the movie. You got to go do all the talk shows, speak to all the journalists and stuff, and be the guy who sells the movie. So as I was doing the film, you know, the director was also sort of directing my life and saying, you know, you can't, I mean, you can see how seriously I take my wardrobe. He was just like, he was telling me how to dress. You know, you got to wear suits like you were wearing in the movie. Like, it was very specific. A little bit of like a last gasp of old Hollywood, you know?
Yeah. It's a shame as well that, because that particular year, I mean, the 13th Floor is a fucking shit hot film. I don't mind saying it. But again, you had The Matrix, there's Fight Club, Phantom Menace. It all just sort of, it was a crazy year. It was a good year and it was a bad year for 13th Floor, because it basically sums up.
It was hilarious because, and I think I actually I was going to go do a talk show here, and they said something like, well, just say it's like The Matrix, but without all the special effects. And I was like, yeah, I don't think that's a good thing to.
It's nothing like The Matrix.
What?
Not really. It's similar in style. There's like simulations, but it's nothing like The Matrix.
Well, I think they were just thinking in terms of like, get the people into the seats. You know, The Matrix.
Yeah.
If you handle it well, The Matrix can actually be good promotion because people enjoy The Matrix. There's not going to be a sequel for a couple of years. Here's this other movie you might enjoy. You know, it's kind of, there's a way to be beaten up by another movie, but it's all salesmanship, you know? So I think that's what they were thinking. You can go, I don't think I do think that's the way they think in publicity. You're kind of trying to talk somebody into checking out whatever it is that you're selling. I mean, that's the reality of it. And I think they get kind of nervous when they see, and this tends to happen. When I was a kid, they made movies like, I can't remember the name of them, but you know, there was like a movie about, remember Big, you know, with Tom Hanks. So, but there were like 3 movies that had come out like the year before, where there was one, an actor named Judge Reinhold. I can't remember the other one, but the one with George Burns, where it's like an 80-year-old man becomes an 18-year-old boy. You know, a lot of body switching movies. Like, but it was like within the same year. And what an odd, you know, like cluster. And then the best, you know, only the best movie is going to emerge from that. And I think it did. You know, everybody remembers Big. But there were these other 2 movies that just got lost. And they were probably, while they were shooting the movie, thinking, oh my God, this is so great. Nobody's ever seen anything like this, you know?
Well, the thing is just like, you know, The Matrix was famous for its bullet time special effects, but story-wise, it kind of was bog standard Joseph Campbell storytelling, you know, your typical hero's journey. But what I appreciate, and especially from last night, watching the 13th Floor again after like, 6 years, you basically, the messages in the film, like with the Rennie Descartes messaging, it's what The Matrix took 3 films to kind of cover about free will and what was it, determination versus free will. The 13th Floor does that in one film. Yeah,
I agree. I have to, it's hard to, and I haven't seen them for a while. I don't really, I'll check out my stuff. Maybe I'll check it out once, but now I tend not to watch it, you know, unless I want to see how something came out, but I'm not like, or does this, if I did something that I've never done before, to see how it plays. But for the most part, don't go back and like recheck stuff. But I'd be kind of interested to look at that again, because I've found the story really intriguing. the more I got into it, and even as time passed, I mean, we were talking earlier before we started, it's affected my writing. It's affected the way I look at, you know, almost everything, because it is kind of mind blowing, you know. And I think I enjoyed The Matrix, but I agree it sort of was a bouquet of a lot of things, and it didn't take the story as far. And so they had a little bit more room to make these sequels. And I hear the next one is very good. I haven't seen it. When does that, you know?
That comes out next week. I'm just going to say this. We interviewed a girl who was a VFX assistant editor on that film, and I asked her off air, "Is it a good film?" I could see in her eyes that it was a shit film.
Oh, that's too bad. But well, we'll see. You know, I think I went to the second one. Maybe I caught the third one, a little bit of it. I thought the first one was fine. Like I got it. And then I just think they're just milking us, you know.
Yeah.
I have similar thoughts.
Well, shooting the 13th Floor, they were talking about what could we do? Would it go anywhere else? And I think the general consensus, it was just sort of lunchroom chatter. Nobody was taking it seriously. But I think the general consensus was, no, I think this is it, you know, because it sort of end up in this other world. There's nothing really to go unless you go backwards.
Yeah.
You know, people want to revisit that world. It's sort of like these, and I know why they do it, but like I've always loved the group Squeeze. And I know recorded a lot of their big songs just so they could own them, because they recorded them for another, so they weren't making it, you know, a lot of people signed contracts for money, right?
A lot of people doing the same sort of thing now, re-recording their songs.
And I say more power to them, you know, it's great. But
all of 2000.
Jeff Lynne did that with the ELO music.
Yeah.
Recorded like the best of. And it's really weird because you almost can't tell them apart, you know. And I just burned through so many of his albums, you know, and had to like rebuy them because they were just faded, you know.
Yeah.
Every inch of them. Yeah.
I
was going to say about the sorry, Dan, go ahead.
No, I was just saying my mom's a big fan of Squeeze. I remember like 2006, she just kept playing the same CD on loop. Those songs were ingrained in my head.
Oh yeah. So you have bad associations and good associations with them.
Oh no, it's good. You know what I mean? It's just like what your parents listen to. Eventually, it's in your brain.
Yeah. That's my youth right there. Squeeze. Oh man, yeah.
But I was going to say about the 13th Floor, about the twist. You would never see that coming because it leads up to like a mystery whodunit, and then bam, you hit with the simulation. You're like, what the? You know what I mean? It's like out of nowhere.
That's an interesting point. What the Matrix was about learning what was happening. And our thing was get that out of the way, get everything out of the way so that everybody knows basically what they need to know so that you can get into this murder mystery, which ends up being like a red herring because there's like a third level, which ends up being reality. It's kind of a trick.
Especially the way it ends.
It's so complicated that you can spoil it without spoiling it, you know?
Well, this one,
if you haven't seen it, you wouldn't know what the hell I'm talking about.
Well, I'm going to say something that shouldn't spoil it, but right at the last shot, it's like it goes off like a TV and it's like, oh, there's a simulation on top of that simulation. That's a bit meta.
They left room for that. Like, did any of this exist, or are you the only, you know? I think some of it was the director just going, maybe you're the only reality, you know, and all of this, maybe you just came to see a movie.
You know, one of my
qualities. And is The Sopranos, did you guys ever see The Sopranos? Did you watch it over there?
Not for a long time. I've got to go back on it.
I've seen it. I've fully watched it. I'm not the biggest fan, but I enjoyed it.
There's some things that are uniquely American, you know?
Yeah. But then again, I love Entourage, and that's American as shit. So the TV show Entourage, it's like about 4 people growing up in Hollywood.
Growing up, I don't know if that's the right term, but it also, I I'd watch that and go, I bet I was in Hollywood. I don't recognize anything. It was sort of a nasty version. It seemed like kind of nasty, funny, but kind of nasty version, and also inverted. Like I watched the show a couple of times, and I thought everybody on the show was terrific, and I actually thought all the writing and everything was terrific. But it seemed to suggest, oh, if somebody becomes a big, huge star, he's kind of the mellow, well-centered guy, and all the guys around him go nuts. Where from what I've seen, it's the other way around. It's if you're young and they make you into a huge star, everybody around you has to like give you a year to become just an ass, and be, because it's not a natural transition, and it's too much attention. You get surrounded by people who are, say nothing but yes all the time. It's not healthy, and it brings out the worst in people. And I looked at that and I was like, this guy's becoming a star and he's handling it that well. Like he was like the well-centered guy. I never got it.
I just like it for its comedy. I mean, it hasn't aged well, I admit, but
yeah.
Well, maybe I look at it differently. I just see it as for enjoyment purposes,
But if it looked like what it really was like out there, I don't think it would be very interesting to many people. I think there are reasons, things are films or TV. It's sort of a hyper reality. You have to make things interesting. On some level, it's just confection. Just can't.
I think that's the point of it, isn't it? Because again, you say the word hyper reality. It's like almost like a parody of itself. It's a reflection of LA, of like what it wants to be, or what people think of it to be.
I just like, if something I like, I think that's why, if something's a television show, I just don't watch that more. And I don't know why it is, because I know there's plenty of good stuff. And, I don't know if this made the actual conversation, but if this was before, but we were talking about like the Crown. I watched The Crown. And a bit of an Anglophile, and I was mentioning I'd gone out with some British girls, and I love England, I love London, and all that kind of stuff. But I never ever understood the monarchy. I had no idea what was going on, and if anything, it was like a little bit of a history class. I knew it was kind of like very light, and I don't know how serious. What do people in England tend to think of it?
It's pretty divided, to be honest. It's kind of divided. We've got royalist, anti-royalist. It's kind of like you get to that point where you think, is it a bit archaic, bit of an archaic institution now? I
think it seems like it. I actually understood it much more than I think I did, which it seemed like, oh, this is it's almost like this family does everything that radio and TV would do like a couple 100 years later. They're basically the country's soap opera that keeps everybody, you can get involved with this family while the government's sort of doing its work. Instead of like imposing a soap opera on the people, they've got like a family that they kind of shove in front of you that that everybody gets all excited about, almost like baseball or cricket. Like you get involved with the family and the soap, the family, and excited that they're this avatar that represents you and goes and visits all the other colonies.
Yeah, it goes down to that pre-modernist mindset.
I don't know if it was good or bad. I thought the actors were very good, but it seemed to be very simple. And I also thought, it's so strange. Nobody but these people probably know what it's like to be in that family. But it's kind of like, I kept thinking of like the Munsters or the Addams Family more than like these paragons of virtue. I kept thinking of more like a freak show, that there's no way to grow up normally when I
think they get locked away, don't they, from a lot of things? Yes. I'd imagine, because it feels foreign to me, the way they speak and assert themselves. It's like, I don't act like that. I've never been taught to act like that.
Isn't there they have, I noticed that, and some of the actors did it really well too, but the way Prince Charles speaks is almost an accent that no longer exists.
Received pronunciation, it's called.
What's it called?
Received pronunciation.
What does that mean?
It's the most recognizable dialect of British English.
Yes, it was sort of like, everything was sort of like, yes, Elizabeth, yes, my little cabbage. My little,
I don't even think I have the ear for it. I'm one of those people who wasn't able to hear the difference between Australia and, those people probably really irritate you. But until I actually spent time there and realized, oh my God, there are all these different regions and the slight different inflections. It's really kind of amazing.
Yeah, it's something that's kind of curious about. I always wonder, at what point did the British accent become a New York accent or a Texas accent? At what point did it become an Australian accent? I'd love to know.
Hey, I was taught, there was actually a British teacher, I think he was with the Royal Shakespeare Company, and there used to be able to get these on tapes, but basically it was a videotaped session where there was some director. I just remember he had giant hair and a big beard, but he'd be working with actors. People would get up and do sonnets or monologues or whatever, and then he would walk you through a scene or a Shakespearean play. But one of the things that he said was that when the original plays were done, the closest, if you wanted to know what the accent was like, go to Brooklyn, New York. It was like a mix between your accent and what you would hear like in Brooklyn, which would be like real, sort of like this. Hey, what the hell's the matter with you? What the hell? What the fuck? Jesus Christ, what the hell? And there was something very like that it's actually came out of a Cockney accent, I think.
Yeah, Irish and
somewhere between there. That's what the common accent was closer to something like a Brooklyn accent, which actually makes sense because we came here with British accents, and I don't know how. It's interesting. And then the Dutch came in, and it just became this whatever the hell I'm doing now.
Yeah. What is your accent? I can't place it. We're not very good with.
It's hard for Americans to place. I grew up about 40 miles north of New York City in an area called Westchester. So I didn't have the New York accent. And people always think I've come from California or the Midwest. Midwest here is sort of like, would the Midwest be, Chicago, I come from Chicago, Illinois, you should come sometimes for Christmas, or Hanukkah. If you celebrate Hanukkah, maybe you're Jewish. That's fine. Just come, give you a turkey. You want to, you can hang a menorah, whatever you want to do, or have a tree, and then you go out to California, like Northern California, and the regionalism is more like, would be closer to like the way, Robin Williams, Robin Williams was from Northern California.
Yeah, he's very rapid, wasn't he, as well?
But the times when he's just kind of talking, straight, that was a little closer to like Northern California. They're very hard to hear. It's when you're American, and I'm sure it's the same with you. You can tell. Oh, Newcastle, definitely you can tell.
For sure.
Then and Liverpool, like as it goes north to Scotland, where it's just impenetrable, and then you realize, oh, they're actually talking a different language.
We've got a strange accent. So we've told this on the podcast a few times already, but
where are you?
Well, I'm in the south of England now. I've been here for 13 years on and off. When I was Weymouth.
Oh, so like down by the coast?
That's where I am. Sean's up in the Midlands.
And Sean, whereabouts?
Northamptonshire. It's a little town called Corby.
So where are you like in between Newcastle and London?
No, so 90 miles north of London is where Sean's at, and about 120 miles southwest is where I'm at of London. Okay. So the story is that a bunch of Scottish people during the Second World War moved down to this little village in the middle of England for the steelworks, and then we're the offspring of these quasi Scottish English people. Okay,
I can hear that. Would that be Penzance too?
Around Penzance is way west.
Oh, way west.
Yeah, near Cornwall, Land's End. They think they're their own community. But the history is so messed up over here.
Yeah.
But, you had the Anglo-Saxons push the Britons to the east, to the west, And then like you got Wales and Cornwall thinks it's its own sovereign nation. It's so fucked up.
Yeah.
They have their own flag and everything.
They really?
There's a war between two counties, Cornwall and Devon, all right, about the original pastry. You got the Cornwall pastry, the pasty, and the Devon pasty, and they're like those little skirmish going on.
Cornish pasty tastes better.
Pastry wars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Only in England, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, I wanted to ask you, by the way, about the lead up, bit of a segue, the lead up to Cinderella Man. How did you come across that part?
Well, it's, you know, a lot of these they're just not exciting stories, but, you know, because it's an audition, like I'll get a script from my agent. So that's what that was. And I think maybe I bore some resemblance, you know, to Max Baer, that they, you know, in the sense that, I mean, it was the same exact height. And by the time when we had a weigh-in the first day, and I didn't try to do this, but I'd been training for like 6 months, and I weighed the exact same that he weighed in the fight. And and I wasn't trying, but it was like 213 or something like that. You have to look it up. But you know, after the lead up was, I went in and I met Ron Howard, and I remember we were in a very small room, like it was almost like the size of like 3 phone booths or something. It was like I was basically like this close to him, and I think I read through some of the dialogue, but there really wasn't very much dialogue. I think he basically wanted to talk to me because this was mainly going to be training, and there was a lot of, he had somebody who was Russell's height. Russell wasn't there because he auditioned me in New York. So he had somebody Russell's height to come in and stand next to me. And just so we could make sure that he got the right match. I mean, it was Russell's picture. So everything was kind of, you know, he was cast and then they constructed everything around him. And then I just literally, the day I found out I got the part, I called a trainer in Brooklyn. And I just started working out. I went in every day, 5 days a week for like 4 months. And the guy put me in the ring really fast, so that I could get hit and all that kind of stuff, it was real fun. But by the time I got there, I felt really strong and ready to go. And as soon as I got there, they fired the original fight coordinator, because he was putting together like a superhero fight. And it wasn't like that at all. This was like, you know, old school, really thin gloves, you know, meat and potatoes boxing. And so I had to get, the guy who trained me actually trains fighters. So I had to get all that. They fight much differently. I mean, now, you know, it's all science. Like they're like this, you can use your arms as armor, and the gloves are much bigger. So, you know, plus the science of fighting has advanced so much. I mean, you look at the difference between even Muhammad Ali and someone like Max Baer, 2 champions, but totally different styles. And Muhammad Ali would just be able to pick him apart, because really Max Baer just had this hammer of a right arm. And that was kind of the point of the fight. He kept pushing him around to the right so he couldn't use this powerful hammer. And then he took him over. And it was really it was great fighting. It was almost what Muhammad Ali was. And it took me a while to figure out why Muhammad Ali was like considered a genius, which was because it's basically chess with hitting. You know, you're observing your opponent. And, you know, you're circling and, you know, faking and all that kind of stuff, just to see what, you know, where does their arm go? What are they trying to protect? If I go this way, what are they trying to protect? Oh, that's probably a soft spot, you know. It's really smart. You're doing all that stuff to unlock your opponent, figure out how you're going to take him apart. Someone like Muhammad Ali. And then there were guys like George Foreman. They were just these human refrigerators that were just like, you're fighting a bulldozer. You know, he doesn't need to play chess. But it's a much different sport than it was then. So I had to get any preconceptions out of my head, and even a little bit of the training that this guy gave me out of my head, and just sort of play the character. And then I think we were both ready by the time we started shooting, because they, like I said, they fired the fight coordinator, and while I was up there, Ron Howard decided that he wanted to shoot the fights in succession in order. So that meant my fight was being dropped to the back, which was fine, but it also meant I'm going to get like another 2 months of training, because I decided to stay up there. What the hell, you know, I'll just keep working. And I had fun up there too. And as long as I'm being paid, might as well stay up here. And by the time I think we got into the ring, he'd shot, Ron and Russell had shot enough that, you know, Ron felt like he knew exactly how he wanted to shoot the scene, which he didn't know at the beginning. You know, it took all those fight scenes basically to rehearse and get up to the level of fighting that scene. I thought that was a really wise decision. And I think Russell was more at ease with being a boxer in the ring. And I had been working all this time, coming in and looking at the filming and all that kind of stuff, getting used to what it was I would be doing and working in front of. So by the time we started working on the fight, I think we both felt really confident, and we're ready to, you're essentially dancing together. You're not really hitting each other, but we knew how to make it look like that. And I think we were both worked well together. So it really looks like, you know, there's a moment, you know, where he flicks the switch, and now I gotta kill you. And I tried to warn you, but now I'm going to take you apart. And I think the only thing, and I was really proud of that. I thought that came off. I thought that was a really wise decision. Again, great director, just knows, just like I said with, you know, I couldn't wait for the curtain to go up on this play. I love the fact that this guy really knew what he wanted. So you didn't really feel lost in this, because you can't learn to box in under 2 years. You know, we weren't boxers, we were playing boxers. So it really helps to have a director know how to shoot you, because he's spending your energy every day. It's an unnatural thing to box every single day. And so we were really exhausted. There were guys on set and who would come to your apartment afterwards, and deep massages, a lot of physical work, a lot of backs going out. My back went out once, you know, couldn't help it. It's just, it was, you're just a big bruise. I mean, I was just so swollen by the time I went home, but it was so great. I mean, it was really, really fun.
Is it true that the audience was made up of mostly cardboard cutouts, or was it inflatables?
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Why not?
In that fight scene, that it'd be fun. It's now that you can, you really can stop and study a picture. I haven't done this, but if you look at some of the hits, because we never actually hit each other, we're always coming really close, or you can pull your punch. You know, I can make it look like I'm hitting you really hard, but I take all the steam off of the punch at the last minute. It's just a trick. But, you know, if the other person reacts, it really looks like a hit. But if you're doing the face, you can't really go like that and hit somebody's face. And so what they would do is, just for that moment, they'd extend the glove. It's almost like a bit of animation. They'd inflate the size of the glove in the picture. It goes by too quickly for you to see it. But they kind of move the glove over so it literally hits the face, so that if the guy turns right, you actually see the impact that's not happening. I think that's pretty much what sets us apart from, I went back and saw Raging Bull, which is a fantastic movie.
Yeah, brilliant.
This point, for me anyway, was the boxing movie for like just to capture the grit of a real fight. I actually liked the original Rocky too a lot, but this was different because, I mean, they couldn't really show the same impact, and they couldn't really hit each other. So it was shot at an angle. They were shot at angles that didn't really communicate that same sense of impact. And Raging Bull didn't look like a fight to me anymore after I had done this. It didn't look real.
Yeah, you know, I'm curious to know, like, when they're filming, you're doing these the last scene in particular with Russell Crowe. Is it like, do you film? Is it a long take, or is it kind of like?
No. We wouldn't have been able to do that. I mean, that's, you have to give it up to real boxers, you know, that, yeah. First of all, every single step we took, was choreographed, and we decided, instead of some of it was a time consideration, but I think these things tend to happen for a reason. They didn't want it. They knew that this fight coordinator had come in originally, and it was like it was like Spider-Man fighting Thor or something. It just didn't make any sense. It was too modern, and it just didn't look like what the old fight looked like. And that's when we decided, hey, we've been studying this fight. The actual fight is on film. Why don't we just transcribe the actual fight? And so I actually, are you guys boxing fans?
Yeah, on and off. Yeah. Well, sure, more so.
It's all like, you can control the other guy. You can just sort of move him around if you can dominate, or just, you can move him into a corner and work him, or you can actually, if he's if he can't like switch to southpaw or something like that, then you can just sort of move him so that he can't.
You're cutting off his strong side. Yeah, I know what you mean.
And which was ultimately what he did in the movie. And I actually I'd never had that experience, because I've never and probably never will box like a full match. So I just thought, whatever happens. And as he was moving me around, I actually felt that frustration. It was really annoying. It's almost like if I'd been choreographed to throw a punch, it would be impossible, because I'm moving this way and I can't, there's frustration on my face. It's genuine. I mean, a lot of what was coming up was genuine. I think that was also part of it too. We were working real hours anyway, so they might as well make it as hard as they possibly can, but especially by the end of the fight, because we didn't do the entire fight. That would have bored the audience silly, and it would have been too long. But they picked the highlights of the actual fight, and part of it was him, that was in the story. He's studying the film and he knows to move me around. And I think there were, so that by the time we got to the end of the fight, those classic moments, there was another one which we just couldn't get. There's a moment where I throw a punch and actually lose my balance. And that's in the real fight. And he's sort of like laughing, like he's trying to make it funny, but he's really kind of pissed off at the same time. And I really, really wanted that shot, because there was like blood coming out. It just looked like the Joker, just mad clown in his hair. And it was just like, but we couldn't get it. It was going to be in like super slow motion. It was my bright idea. Let's get this thing. And I think we lost like an hour, because it was just really, really hard to trip and at the same time play this moment and then fall. And I had to keep falling. But does that answer your question?
Yeah, fucking absolutely.
Yeah, man.
No, I'm just trying to be careful not to talk over you. That's all.
Yeah.
Because usually we're like, we never normally talk over each other, but always like, I mean, and also I don't want to cut you off at any point, because everything you're saying is on point. It must have been a real buzz, because it got nominated for a lot of awards, didn't it, back in 05, 06?
I don't know. I don't know. I if it did, I'm not sure. I did a TV show here a couple of years ago, and it got nominated for. Oh no, it won the Peabody Award, which was for writing. Okay. Which was great. I think there was some nominations. I think we won awards. It was basically it was a show about these two women, so it was winning a lot of awards for breaking new ground and female-oriented drama and stuff like that. And it kind of preceded the Me Too movement. The U2 movement's been going on for quite. Bono's been around for a long time, but right as Me Too was breaking, our show was getting canceled. It was called Unreal. I don't know if you get it over there. I think it's on Hulu or something.
I've actually been looking into it. Yeah, looks all right.
It was great. It was, but it was a real role reversal. I was basically playing the part that would normally go to the female, because most TV is, male dominated. And this was basically about these two women, like sort of taking over they worked on a reality show. It was like The Bachelor. And the woman who wrote the show and produced the show, Sarah Gertrude Shapiro. Sarah Shapiro. actually worked on The Bachelor for like 10 years and really wanted to like tell the story of like how they manipulated people, and it's kind of an evil, toxic atmosphere. So it was a very dark show. It's really good. I'm really proud of it. But we kind of missed. It was also a little mistimed. It came a little too early. It preceded, I think, what the wave that could have rode for a couple more years, which is unfortunate.
We don't get Hulu over here, but I'll be sure to try and look it up. What was it called again?
Called Unreal. It's good.
Cool.
Unreal.
Cool. So how long between Cinderella Man, that, and before you started working on Scary Movie 4? Because that was a year later, wasn't it?
I think it was a year later. I think that's what, put me on their radar, because I think they wanted somebody. They're very smart. David Zucker started. He was,
isn't it?
And all that kind of stuff. So he kind of fathered that kind of humor. I mean, all of that. Scary Movie was very much had its roots in Airplane and Kentucky Fried Movie. If you guys have never seen that, but that was the first movie that those guys made, and then off of that they had the money to make Airplane. But they actually started when they were in college. They did this thing called Kentucky Fried Theater. This was the Zucker brothers and Jim Abrams who wrote those movies, and not the Scary Movies, but that was just David Zucker, apart from the other two. But when they were at the Triumvirate, they were at the University of Wisconsin, and they like rented a space and they did the show. And to this day, I've heard people say that show that these three college guys did with some of their friends was the single funniest thing they've ever seen in their life. And it was the guys who would come up with Airplane. And then I never saw the first Scary Movie, but I heard it kind of, that it actually got good at 2, 3, 4. I think it ran out of gas a little bit. But those were the ones that those guys did, or David Zucker did. And I really sat at his feet, tell me everything, because I just wanted to learn as much as I possibly could. And I knew that part of the reason that I was cast was, I love comedy, but it just so happens I've been doing like a string of films that weren't. They were dramatic films, kind of heavy, 13th Floor, Cinderella Man, Long Kiss Goodnight. And I was kind of getting known as a heavy, which I loved. I didn't want to play even with 13th Floor, I love the fact that I got to play a bit of a nasty guy towards the end. There was a guy who could download into me and actually become like the bad guy. I just loved that. And I don't know if I would have been interested in otherwise. I just started to get really bored with playing the guy you want, your daughter to bring home. And it just got a little.
That's one of my favorite things is when an actor who's predominantly doing straight roles. One of my favorite examples is it Kathy Bates? She won an Oscar for Misery. And then next thing you know, she's playing Adam Sandler's mother in Waterboy. That scene when he's like, see that bed sheet over there?
Well, that's the other somebody like De Niro, who's doing, got known for Taxi Driver and this brilliant actor. To see him in Meet the Fockers or whatever it was, Meet the Parents originally, wasn't it? Meet the Parents.
Yeah, that was the first one.
Bad Grandpa as well. That's crazy.
Years later. Yeah.
Yeah. It's I think it can go either way. Either I put, usually it's really fun to see, and it's a bit of stunt casting. You take somebody who's known for being this really intense character, and then they get known for doing comedies. I think Christopher Walken, who's brilliant, he got known for he'll lampoon himself, but then he's so talented, he can go back to doing the really serious stuff. People watch him do anything. And I think and part of it, I think he's very cagey. He's a very smart person. And I think he probably realizes the crazier you come off, the more people will buy you as anything, So and De Niro and Pacino used to be able to do this, but it's a different market. You have to go out and do talk shows, but it also helped that these guys, nobody ever knew what these guys were like in real life. And it made it easier for them to jump back and forth and do different things. Once you see them on a talk show and maybe they say something a little, you're bound to say something that just makes you seem like a normal person, like I'm doing now. Like back in the day, I don't think they ever would have done something like this. Whereas I think it's really great that, you know, I don't know how healthy it is to, you know, to not know how things are made, you know, that you really shouldn't get lost in this world. It's not actually happening. Don't waste your life trying to make this real. You know what I mean? And if you really love it, then learn about it, go to school for it, but don't get lost, you know, in all this stuff.
It's just, it's the same with Leslie Nielsen in Scary Movie 4. You know what I mean? He was known for Dracula, and the next thing you know, he's doing Naked Gun.
That worked for them is Cat exactly right. Leslie Nielsen, I think first time I'd ever seen him was the Poseidon Adventure. He's the captain of the Poseidon Adventure, just a straight ahead guy and trying to save a ship, and he's the first guy to, you know, to die, but he's like this hero. And I think he did a lot of B movies, and he would have been in a movie like this. It was perfect. He fit right in, and I think that's what they wanted. They didn't want funny people. They wanted people who to play it as if they were doing a serious drama, and then say the ridiculous things. I mean, the one that everybody knows is, Shirley, I'm not joking, don't call me Shirley, you know? And I had to learn. I mean, I saw that in high school, and I died laughing when I saw Airplane. I couldn't breathe. I'd never seen anything like it. And then to be working with them and realize, oh, this isn't as easy as it looks, because you want to laugh. You know, it's ridiculous. You're saying all this crazy shit. Some of the runs they wrote, I mean, the Scary Movie runs, the stuff like, did he have a nose? Yeah.
Last night, yeah.
Through that, I couldn't get through it. And she was so great. You know, Anna Faris is so talented, and so and was second nature to her, because this was the third movie that she'd done of the Scary Movies. And I had to kind of catch up and learn how to do this thing that I've been watching and loving, but it's really hard to do.
Your expressions are amazing, though. That's what makes the comedy gold, is your expressions. Like, you use them in your serious roles, whether it be 13th Floor, Cinderella Man, but seeing them in Scary Movie 4, it's hilarious. Even though it's not.
I was the reverse. I watched Scary Movie 4 before I watched 13th Floor, so I assumed you're a comedy guy. So
that's because you're probably waiting for some slip on something and fall through, bang my face on a piece of glass or something. But
we hold it.
How much of that is also, if you take an actor, because I would think, wow, that's really, you know, you take an actor who just made some noise in comedy or something, and you put them in a dramatic role. So much of it is lighting, the way it's shot, camera angles. I'm working on something right now, and we're realizing, and we want it to be a comedy, but we're, you know, it's kind of a serious issue. And we got to thinking about, have you ever seen, what's the Kubrick movie? Dr. Strangelove.
Yeah, the one about the bomb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are the kids watching their Kubrick? Are you guys watching your?
Oh, well versed on it.
We're fucking nerds, so like we love all that stuff.
He's the master. I don't know that there's ever been anybody, there'll ever be anybody like him. And I didn't realize how dense every movie was. Like, I don't know that he was doing it in those earlier films, but definitely like Eyes Wide Shut. I remember it came out, I was like, it's too bad that that's his last movie. But since then, and there's a guy, actually, he's British. I want to say Ager, maybe his last name is Ager. It's Collative Learning. If you look it up on YouTube, I want to give him a shout out, because I love this guy's channel, and he takes deep dives into these movies, and some of them, like Eyes Wide Shut, he'll walk you through almost frame by frame. He does it with The Shining too. And he shows you that Kubrick was he's playing like three level chess. Like, he's like, you need to look at everything in the frame, the artwork, the way that, I mean, he's telegraphing you and linking scenes together that wouldn't have anything to do with each other. Like all of the stuff, you've seen Eyes Wide Shut, right? Did you get
all the way through? I mean, I'm a big fan of Full Metal Jacket.
That's another one too. It's segmented, so it's cut in half. Like, I used to love watching the first half and didn't watch the second half because I thought it looked like a standard movie, until you realize these movies are the halves of the movies are talking to each other, and there are motifs, like visual motifs that you see in the first half, and then you see in a completely different, like when they're actually in war, you see that the scene is set up actually.
Yeah. And it was done in London. That's the crazy part.
Right.
Well, they had to plant palm trees. In London.
Insane.
And like Vincent D'Onofrio in that is something else. That scene towards the end is chilling.
Yeah, great scenes in cinema. So you can imagine, like I had seen that movie a couple of years before, more than I think that came out in like 89 or 90, something like that.
87.
Was it 87?
Yeah.
Already in. So I was already like I had just gotten to LA, and I hadn't worked at all. I saw that movie and I thought, that's one of the great performances, I think, of all time. I just love that. And that's his first film. That was his first film. And it's staggering. It still gets me. And then to meet him and then work on this movie with him and couldn't go there. I saved it for after the movie, because you have to be able to stand up to this guy, but it was really something. I just think that's an amazing performance. He's such a terrific actor. He really is. He's so passionate. I just bought a book of his poetry. And he's very active on Twitter. I don't know if you guys do that, but he's like really active on Twitter. Got a big heart. He's a good guy.
Attention to detail. Like even in the 13th Floor, like he's got, because I used to work with a software department. I was a French-speaking IT analyst, but I had to liaise with the software department, and he got the perfect attention to detail. The black rings of the eyes of someone staring at a screen all day.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
yeah, it's just the way his mind works. He's just a true artist. I find him really inspiring. Good guy.
Yeah, you guys still in contact?
Yeah, we got in contact. I think we had a kind of. There wasn't anything bad about it, but sometimes you just go to work, and there was so much. It was a big bite for me. I'd never played anything. It wasn't with. I'd done plays, blah blah. This was to carry a movie or be the lead in a movie. I don't want to say carry it, because I certainly had help, but to be the quote unquote lead guy in a movie was, in order not to be unnerved, I kind of had to I had to make sure I was absolutely prepared. So there really wasn't time for socializing or, hanging out between. Just wanted to make sure that I was, get to the point where they've got enough film on me where I'm not going to get fired. That's the idea. Just survive. But it was more afterwards. And I think within like it was during the pandemic where we were just sort of like communicating more and more, like on Twitter and stuff. And one of these days, I'm sure we'll get together.
Nice. Got to do like a
revisit that thing. It's hard because the movies, I think it's more of a cult thing,
Well, I don't want to sound like a nerd, but I had a poster of the 13th Floor in my wardrobe with you stood there with the green grid and it says "Question everything."
You know what?
I've got it up there right now. To be even nerdier.
Oh yeah.
Good, man. Fly the colors. But I never liked the catchphrase or the logo, whatever. It was like, you can go there even though it doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's a bit.
Yeah, I get you.
What?
Yeah,
I get it.
It's a lame line, but it's just that typical.
I just thought, and I remember him coming in. I remember the guy who came in with the line. I remember him announcing, and I just went, nah. Like inside, I was.
Was it actually Don?
No good.
Was it? What's his full name? Don, the trailer guy.
Oh, I'm not going to tell you.
He's dead now. He's been dead for.
Oh, the trailer guy.
Up with the phrase for the poster, but I don't remember that guy's name, but I know the guy who goes like, "In a world."
Yeah.
I think that was one of his last. I don't think he's with us anymore. I don't think so.
2008, I think he went, because like Inception came along and sort of changed trailers forever.
Yeah.
With the
look at the trailers are always. It's like kind of and then somebody says one line. There's silence. And then your rock and roll song, and then the pictures start tumbling really fast. It's the same. It's like they got everything science now.
I refuse to get tricked by trailers anymore since Halloween Kills, because Halloween Kills trailer looked badass. And then you watch it, and it's a bit of a wet fart, isn't it? I don't know if you watched it.
Which one was it? Hollywood? Halloween?
Halloween Kills. It's the sequel to the newest one.
New one. No good?
I wouldn't say it's bad, but it's just like a bit tame for a sequel that's that's promising loads of kills and stuff. Not like I'm a kill guy, but
is it like the new? They did like a Halloween that was reboot.
They
Is the sequel to that?
It's like the original, the 1971, I think, 78. I'm not sure, but they cut all the others and then made a direct sequel to that in 2018.
Okay.
And then the sequel to that one came out in October for Halloween, and then it was half decent, but the trailer made it look so good. And then I was like, that's it, I'm done with trailers now. I'll watch the film when it comes out,
Yeah.
That's my
I'm back in the 90s again. We're going back to Don, the voiceover trailer guy. Sometimes I'd say things about the movie that wasn't the movie.
And they've gotten pegged for that a lot too. They'll show you footage like from a scene that got cut.
Yeah.
And you're like, I came because I wanted to see that, It's
Funny you mentioned that. I remember Rocky IV trailer from the original 1986 Rocky IV, and there's a trailer. In the trailer, there's a scene where he's with the boxing commission. They're just shutting him down, saying we're not going to sanction this fight. But Stallone's done a director's cut of Rocky IV that came out last month. And that seems it's tremendous. Really,
because that's when they really lost me. I actually liked 3. Which one was with? Oh no, yeah, 2 is when he goes back. He has the rematch with Apollo Creed. 3 was Mr. T, which I thought was pretty good.
Yeah.
And then 4, I was like, what? That became a cartoony.
Ivan Drago, yeah. There's a YouTube doc.
Product like the glistening. I was like, enough with the glistening.
Yeah. There's a documentary of Stallone talking about it all through 2020 when he's saying like, because of the pandemic, he had nothing. Oh, you saw it.
The editor, right? The guy's editor, still talking, and then you hear the film, and he's just like, quieter. Like he doesn't stop.
Yeah, I loved it. And yeah, he said that in 30 years he's matured as a human being.
Yeah.
And he has more confidence now, whereas when he was 38 years old or however old he was, he didn't have the confidence to hold certain scenes.
Yeah.
And I can honestly promise you it's worth watching.
I will. No, I'm looking forward to that because I genuinely love those movies, and I love boxing movies. It's just so basic, I mean, it's well played, then the fight actually feeds the story, I absolutely remember seeing the first Rocky. It was going out of my mind. It was so fun. By the time that scene kicks in, the bell goes off. It was all just so great. The sound design, every aspect of it was so great. He's climbing up the ropes, awesome. You can get sequelitis. I'm glad he did that. That's really cool. And I love that we're in that era. Like I was saying before we started, that I was just watching it like halfway through, like watching it the second time. But they've taken this, the Beatles did a documentary, the making of the album Let It Be, which was originally supposed to be called Get Back. And it was kind of dark and sort of shuffled away because it was depressing. You kind of see them breaking up and how they're not getting along, and you don't want to see them that way. And it kind of got forgotten, and they didn't release it on DVD. And then I'm blanking on the name of the director who put it together, who did I know you guys would know it, and I'm forgetting the name.
I'm going blank as well. Don't worry.
The big trilogy with Middle Earth. What was it called?
Peter Tolkien.
Peter Tolkien.
3 men sharing a quarter of a brain got there. We worked together and we
got
that. Yeah. Peter Jackson found the original footage that they didn't use. It was like 60 hours of footage, 50 hours of footage. And so it wasn't that depressing. And you actually see all of it. You see I don't know if you guys are Beatle fans or not, but I was a crazy Beatles fan. And to actually, you actually see Paul in a chair coming up with the idea for Get Back and playing through it for the first time. You actually see it like being born. It's kind of amazing. And then you're kind of like, come on. Because he doesn't know the song yet. You do, you know, you're like, come on. And these things, he's trying to find the right words. And you're like, no, that's ridiculous. Come on. It's amazing. And then you also see like John Lennon talks about how he doesn't have confidence and that he used to get really scared before every concert, you know.
I'm a big fan of the Doors, and Jim Morrison would have his back turned to the crowd. So yeah,
the same with the lead singer from Joy Division. He had a big thing about performing on crowd.
What was his name?
I'm not 100% sure. Ian something though. Ian Curtis.
There we go.
I think I like that when guys admit that.
I mean, it's really down to earth, isn't it?
Points is drinking, I guess.
Yeah,
that's a lot to handle, and you just assume these guys came down to earth and just assumed the mantle of like rock stardom, you know, or someone like Sting. But I bet Sting gets a lot out of, like, I know the guy's like does a lot of yoga. You know, a lot of that I'm sure just helps with stress. Getting up in front of people is, you know.
I was the same on my way here. You know, I was nervous about meeting you. You know, I'm just like, fuck.
Really?
I mean,
I totally get it.
Like, this man's my idol, and you know, 13th Floor was a big deal for me. You know.
Yeah, man. Top 3 movies of all time, and I'm talking to you right now. It's crazy.
That means a lot to me.
You know, I've got a book coming out in 10 days, and you know, 13th Floor is part of that journey.
Oh, that's nice to know. Well, whatever you're on, like you're on Twitter and all that stuff.
Instagram.
I mean, I'm happy to tweet it for you, help you
yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
I look forward to reading it too. You know.
Yeah, well, I won't. You know, my 2 golden rules as a writer: don't insult the reader's intelligence and don't waste their time. So you enjoy it.
Now I'm watching. That's the thing, and it's the reason I'm not going to sell you on watching Get Back, because it's quite it's a slog if you're not into it. It's long. It's like it's in 3 segments, and like each are over 2 hours. It's a lot. But if you're a fan, and really what you're watching is, you think the Beatles, like, all you ever really heard was the music, but you see how much work it took and how hard they worked. Just learning how to work together, like up until the end, they had to keep readjusting because it's 4 guys with real strong personalities. And it's getting to be the end. Like, it feels like the natural end, you know, for them. And they kind of know it. And they were going to do 1 more album after this. They were going to do Abbey Road. It's really amazing that they held it together, and it was all because of this work ethic. And I just seen Paul McCartney say, you got to be heading to something. You can't just drift around. You know, you got to have your eye on what it is that you want to do. And John Lennon was more like, I kind of like drifting, you know, but get all those energies in the same jar and shake them around. It works, but it's not easy.
Yeah, and John Lennon said himself on an interview, like, you know, the Beatles had been together 5 years before they were even famous, so it'd been a long time that they were together.
It was too much. That was the other thing, was everybody blamed Yoko, and you kind of say, she just sits there quietly. She's very respectful, and you even hear Paul say, we've never seen him this happy. We love him, so we want him to be happy. You know? When
they broke up, Yoko Ono and John Lennon broke up for about 18 months, and he went off the rails, and he referred to it as his lost weekend.
Right. But it was like a year, you know.
Yeah, a year and a half. That's a long weekend.
Yeah, and he was drinking with what's his name? Nilsson, and the Vampire Club, Alice Cooper, they call it the Vampire Club. Yeah.
There's something I wanted to mention as well. You were talking about like how this Beatles documentary, or this rendition, is like, it was based on footage that they'd found. And one of my favorite stories when it comes to footage being found is the 1927 silent film Metropolis.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that one?
Yeah.
It got lost.
Was it Murnau, or what's his name? Murnau, who directed it?
Oh, I can't remember his name. It was a German guy.
Yeah, I think that was it.
But
cool.
Well, a lot of it didn't do too well when it first came out, and a lot of the footage got lost because of World War II. And it wasn't until about 2010 that someone found 95% of it in a vault in Argentina.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And they went to great lengths to, you know, restore the negatives. and then finally presented it. You know, the Argentinian cut of Metropolis.
When did
The original?
the Argentinian?
Oh, I think 2010. I want to say, because it was
Okay.
a couple of years before that they found it by pure accident.
In Los Angeles, you would have they'd show silent movies and they'd have like an orchestra. They'd have an orchestra come in. I think that was one of the movies. You know, they'd have an actual orchestra. They'd have someone come in and like write almost a symphony around the movie. It was beautiful.
One of my regrets is missing about 30 miles away from my town is a place called Bournemouth, biggish city, and they had in their international theater they had a showing of Star Wars with a live orchestra, and I missed it. I regret that.
Yeah,
that would have been awesome.
I really want to see Book of Mormon.
Yeah,
is that any good? I hear a lot of good things.
It's the guys who did South Park and Team American stuff. So I never saw it, but I hear it's pretty great. And it's a great thing. It's a great first show if you're not into musicals or something like that, because it's so funny and so offensive, but in a way that's kind of. I never thought that they were offensive just for the sake of being offensive. I always thought they were making a point. These were really smart guys. I never found South Park offensive because it actually seemed like it was sane. Like it was the core of that show is actually kind of sane. It's just all the craziness we're all living,
It moves with the times. Always bringing up something relevant. Yeah, sometimes it's offensive, but it's always relevant at the time,
Subject like you can't talk about that. It's like, no, you can talk about anything that's crazy,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe in certain societies, but this is quote unquote, a free society. We should be able to make a movie about it. If we can't, that's kind of weird. Why are you so concerned about that? That's, I like that those movies exist, even if some of them can be offensive, or I think Shoot Low or the guys who are making them don't quite have what it takes to comment on something like that, or maybe I don't know, whatever. I love the fact that there's, there are all these kinds of movies out there. I just love it. I mean, I don't know if it's quite the same anymore, but I love it. Where's that play? It's actually touring now. See it?
Done now, I think.
Movie.
The Book of Mormon was the Star Wars show.
Oh yeah, Book of Mormon.
Oh, I don't know. I don't think it's ever been in the UK. I'm not 100% sure actually.
Yeah, it hasn't.
Yeah,
It's
supposed. I heard that it was great, and I did. The first thing I did was this show that I was talking about. One of the first things that I did was for stage. Certainly was Music Man, and that's a big Broadway musical, and people just assume, oh, you must go to all these musicals. But I don't love them. I'm not. I do. I grew up listening to them. My mother listened to all the albums and stuff like that, so I knew all the music. But I never got real. I loved the shows. I've done a couple of them, and I loved the shows that I did because I knew them growing up. But I don't love a lot of the new stuff. And even though I heard great things about Book of Mormon, I never quite got to the point where I went to see it.
It's just such a saturation these days, and as you get older, you realize your time's precious.
Also, I find anyway that this isn't true for everybody, but I don't think I see as many movies or see as many plays as I did before I started doing movies and plays. I think it does. I don't know why. Sometimes it feels like I don't need to, sometimes it's just, I'm more dull. I'd rather be doing other shit. But also it just feels like, it almost feels like I'm going to go watch other, I got a day off and I'm going to just go down to the factory and watch other people screw in widgets.
I remember.
I get you. I before we started doing the podcast, I was on a movie, lull, I'd say. But then we started doing this, talking about movies and stuff, and I'm right back into it again.
Well, that's good. You have an excuse too.
Yeah, true.
I don't know if you can do it over there, but if you're here and it's your actual job, you can write it off.
Tax deductible. I love that.
120% of everything you make over there.
Oh man, it's crazy over here.
Just drive your check over to Buckingham Palace and put it in the box and then drive away, right?
Oh man, I love that. By the way, I got to ask you,
tax man.
Oh
It's
yeah,
all-
the tax man. He's a very, say what you will about him. I appreciate the work ethic. I mean, there's 4.3 million self-employed people in this country, and there's one man dealing with all that because they call him tax man, don't they? Singular.
yeah, one guy.
That's one hell of a work ethic.
Bob Tax.
That's it. We're gonna write a film for you. That's it. We'll call him the tax man. It's just.
Let's do it.
It turns into tax men when you don't pay them. No.
And then you got taxman. Like except with taxes instead of clause.
By the way, it's getting a bit late over here. I don't want to keep you too long, but real quickly, what's your
What time's it there?
11:30 p.m.
Oh God, you guys have school tomorrow.
Fucking hell, we left school what 16 years ago now.
Before you ask the final question, Dan, I've had this question bubbling on my brain since we started. It's like, if a studio give you some money to be like, hey, Craig, go make your own film, what would your like dream project be?
I've got it.
Oh,
You got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I can't tell you what it is, but
That's a
it all.
shame.
No, but I can tell you that, and this isn't by design. It was because it was something that I actually came up with a few years ago. One movie I made, I don't know if you've seen, and that's such an American, but it was the Three Stooges. They did like a reboot of the Three Stooges, and I just played like the fop in that, But guy's always getting hit by the bus. Guy was trying to outsmart them, and then just ends up getting hit by a bus all the time. But I remember I was down there and I had a couple of days off. I was in Atlanta, which is south of where I am, between here and Florida, and just sort of stuck with nothing to do. And so I just thought, well, I'll make, I had my iPhone with me, and I write and I want to, make films and stuff like that. So I just figured, well, I'm going to write a scene, shoot it, and then edit it. And I'll just take a couple of days and do that. I'll do everything. And none of the other actors were free. So I had to play the other actor. So I just basically was just me talking to me. And I found a reason to do that. And then one thing led to another. And I thought, and I ended up writing this movie where it's just me, like stuck in a room. There's actually a scene, if you can find it on YouTube. There was an alternative ending to 13th Floor. I think I don't know.
It's on the DVD.
Was it the one where I'm in the concrete room and then it opens up like finally, but I'm in this windowless concrete cell. And
I meant to watch the extras. I fell asleep listening to the commentary, but I didn't see it.
I never listened to the commentary, and I don't know if I saw the extras. I think it is on the extras, but there was this. Yeah, it was this. It was kind of a fake out, but it was. I end up in this concrete, like windowless, doorless concrete.
It's not on the extras.
That's it. I think find it on. You know what? I can send you the link. If I can find it, I'll send you the link. If not, I'll find the footage one way or another. But it's why was I talking about this? Was it because of the other?
You talk about the Three Stooges remake and
being stuck in a concrete room, dream project.
Coming up with this concept, and but I don't know how. I don't know why I started talking about that scene. Must be.
It's all right. You got to keep it under wraps anyway. We appreciate that.
I can't tell you what that thing was about because it just sort of turns on. And I've actually been screwed before, and I trust you guys, but who knows who's listening. But actually had somebody like lift an idea and go off and make something. I couldn't believe it. It happens.
Oh, yeah, no, that is totally against everything I stand for.
Me too. It's really disappointing that it happens and that you have to be careful. But there are predators out there. You got to be.
Oh yeah.
I've been very naive in the early days of my projects, but now that I'm starting to get into it now, it's like I'm finding it so much easier to keep it to myself.
Well, if you've written a book, you have every reason to like post a guard, and guard what you've done. You put your life into this, and if somebody wrote a cheap version of that just so they could get it out fast, it's
all good. I've got the copyright and everything. I'm good now.
You. That's a smart. I wasn't smart. I just, I shot my mouth off, and it was like 20 years later. After somebody had asked permission, I said no. It's it's kind of gross, but it happens. But you get gun shy, and I have a little NDA app. If somebody wants to hear something, I'll send them, I'll send them an app. I'll send them the non-disclosure contract, because I don't take any chances with that now.
Don't blame you.
For sure.
Real quickly, I got to ask one question. It's a bit of a segue, but how much fun did you have doing that Oprah Winfrey scene in Scary Movie 4?
I loved it. That was a great compliment that I didn't even realize at the time. But those movies, starting with Airplane, the Abrams Zucker movies, they're all heavily scripted. They know exactly what they're doing, and you guys are savvier than most people think. People think movies get made up as you go along or whatever, but whatever people think. But no, everything is fully scripted. It's like any other movie, and it's just a different style. But in that movie, I think he could tell I like to improvise, and and then I could do it. It wasn't just like an idea. So there was 2 scenes, that scene, the Oprah scene. It was written out. It just wasn't supposed to have all that other insane. I think it was, he sits down and goes right to the crazy running back and forth, swinging on the rope, and then in and out. And I was just like, no. I've got some ideas. Let me just at least get these ideas out. Just let me go out there and just go nuts, And they found that actress was really great who played Oprah. She looked just like her, and she did such a good job. We were going to do like the wrist breaking and all that stuff. All of that was written in, but all this stuff where I take a swing at her and hit myself, all that shit, and flipping over the couch. And I had so much fun. Oh, fucking a shoe.
Oh, yeah.
And the bit with the fucking nipples.
What it was like, I used to say to people, like, destiny is to beat you to death with this shoe. And just to see what their reaction would be, just because I like, if it was a friend, I wouldn't scare somebody on the street like that. But like, I got obsessed with the shoe. Like, oh, go fuck a shoe. What do I care? And then to actually be able to like fit it into something that I was going to do, and knowing that people were going to spend millions of dollars shooting me fun. I was having more fun than anybody else. But then there was other stuff. Like, I think lifting her skirt up, I think that was in the script. I know the stuff and he let me go. And the other one that he let me go on, and it just so happened that the other actor also improvised, was when I'm trying to get out. The other guy's trying to get into the car. I'm like, get into the car. If you want to live, get into the car. And in the original movie, War of the Worlds, the guy's like, you can't, what are you doing? And he doesn't see that he's going to get killed. And so I drive off, or Tom Cruise drives off with the kids. And in this movie, there might've been a little bit of like, he misses it. But I just went, I think this could go for the rest of the movie. If it was me, of him just going, don't do it. Like, just that shit cracks me up. It kills me. The little, like, those little petty annoyances that you recognize from daily life, and all of a sudden it's invaded a big movie like this at like a critical moment. Shit like that really, really makes me laugh. And so he let me go on for a long time. In Scary Movie 4, it's much longer. But he actually had a cut of the film, and I think somebody talked him out of it, but it was like twice as long. It just kept going. And he loved it because it was like, you thought it was over, and then it just kept going. And then it was funny that we kept going. It wasn't even funny anymore. It was just so absurd that we were, that they kept it that long. I love stuff like that. And I love that he took a chance with it, because it's a franchise and they know what their audience likes, but he still was like letting somebody come to him with something new. That's good filmmaking, I think.
I love the bit as well where like Tom Ryan works as a crane operator, and he's in the pub and he goes over to a little arcade crane machine.
And do you know Kevin Hart is in that?
Yeah.
They did the Brokeback Mountain scene.
Oh, yeah.
The tents just going at the end.
Oh man, they were hilarious. And yeah, Anna was terrific. Well, the whole cast was great. The little kids I thought were terrific.
Oh, they played straight well as well.
What's that?
They played straight really well, the kids.
Really great. There was one scene where, who is the actor? It's the Tim Robbins part.
Yeah.
Or in the village.
No, it was what we find we go to like the outskirts and it's like a guy, like a scary guy.
Michael Marsden.
Michael Marsden. That's it. Excellent actor. And he was up for anything. He was absolutely up for anything. He knew what his image was, from like Reservoir Dogs, really scary. He's just like, however you want to use it, man. It was great. He was up for anything. And there was a scene where I sit down and it's in the dark and I'm realizing this guy's crazy, and I got to get my kids out of here. And I remember it was really intense in the movie. And I actually listened to it was originally a radio drama, War of the World.
Yeah, I remember Orson Welles.
Yeah. And I've listened to that twice. It's actually kind of creepy.
You know the story.
Out in New York, they really thought it was real.
Yeah. People running.
Yeah. And it's really dark and it's basically the end of the world, and then all of a sudden they figure out this, he walks into Central Park and realizes these guys, they're all dying, because what was it? They get like the flu or birds or something. I can't remember what it was. But so we had a thing where I sat down opposite him and we played the scene. And it was kind of funny. And we shot it. There's a version of it, or maybe it's on the extras, but I sat down and I'm kind of waiting for him. And I think he's in the dark and I hear him go, whatever he said, but he goes, maybe you could get off my lap. And I look around and I'm sitting on his lap. It might be on the extras, but they didn't put it in. But I love stuff like that. I love that he would do it.
Yeah.
Because you'd think that Michael Marsden would be in the actual Steven Spielberg movie. He's of that standard.
He could have, yeah. Well, that's what they were looking for. I think they I don't know if they went the other way I'm trying to think if there was anybody in the movie they were really careful about it.
Do they have Mike Tyson? That's Mike Tyson cross-dressing, isn't it, in the ring with Anna Faris when she and she has a flashback and they're all breaking their necks.
They used impersonators, like they used a Michael Jackson impersonator who's best.
That's not Mike Tyson.
I don't think it's Tyson. No, I think
fucking hell.
Yeah, I think it would have. Well, they fooled you. I mean, it worked, but I think Tyson, and it was like it had to be Mike Tyson, but I don't know. I don't think so. They got at the beginning. They had Shaq.
Oh yeah, Dr. Phil.
And they always get somebody, but I think as the movies started to get less popular, certainly from what I'd heard about 5, like they didn't have all that, and it also wasn't the same director. They went to another director, and it just wasn't as appealing.
I haven't even watched 5. I don't think I can bring myself to do it, man.
No, we ended up on a high note with yourself.
Yeah.
And again,
Cheers.
It was the first R-rated movie we watched because we were 14 at the time, and Sean and I, we've been friends since we were 12. We were just rolling on the floor.
That's great.
And it's funny that we've had this relationship with you sporadically throughout our lives. Scary Movie 4, like first R-rated movie, and then the 13th Floor having the big influence on the sort of the sci-fi cyberpunk genre in our writings.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm very honored. We don't want to keep you waiting any longer, so we're going to wrap up soon. But again,
if there's anything else to talk about, or
what's your favorite movie?
I have so much trouble with that stuff because it always changes and I don't have any favorites, but there are movies that I love. I don't know if it's the best movie ever made, but I think one of my favorites is Jaws. I think Jaws would be right up there.
Dave Sheridan said that.
Yeah.
And it's really funny. And the actors are terrific. And
Jaws is a great film.
Oh man. There was a play, I think it was in London, but there's a play about the making of Jaws. It's the 3 guys in the boat, the 3 actors. Because I know they didn't get along. There was a lot of like stuff where they testing each other. They just didn't like each other. But it kind of, I think Robert Shaw, who's amazing, was kind of just like he's one of those actors that like to test the other actors. You know, he just liked to get people. And it was easy, I guess, to wind Richard Dreyfuss up. And or Roy Scheider's watching the whole thing, but it was actually added to it. You know, I think Robert Shaw like said something like he was walking onto the boat. He was a big drinker, and he was walking onto the boat. He had like his cocktail. He was like, "Can I get a little help?" And Richard Dreyfuss said, "You want some help?" And he grabbed the drink and he threw it into the ocean. All the guys on the set who drank just went, "Oh," because they knew he's going to get killed, but also like, what a waste. You know, I had a nice glass of scotch. And they just hated each other, apparently. But I think they had like a détente. There recently, I think, or a few years ago, Dreyfuss was on the Graham Norton show, right? Is that still there? Graham Norton, right?
Still going. That's still going, yeah.
Yeah. He was on the Graham Norton show, and there was I think it was Robert Shaw's granddaughter was in the audience. And he started crying because he just said, "I want to talk to you afterwards and tell you all about your grandfather." And in fact, he had, you know, there was a lot of
sweet
playing. Yeah, it was really nice. What was it? It was called The Shark. The Shark Isn't Working or something like that.
Bruce was broken, wasn't he?
Is that the name of it? Bruce is broken? It was something like that. They called it The Shark because whatever the plane ran over there, it might still be running. You guys like it. Oops.
That's why. Sorry, Sean's battery's going. Oh. Yeah. I think it was called I think the shark was called Bruce. I might be wrong on that, but yeah, it was one of those what was his name? The guy that does all the paintings. Happy Little Accident. What was his painter's name? Bob Ross. That was it. So
Bob Ross.
Bob Ross uses the expression happy little accidents, and that shark not working was a happy accident because it built up the suspense.
And that is the same. Do you draw too?
Nah, I can't draw versus shit. Stickman.
I draw, but yeah, those happy little accidents. Same thing when you're working, you know, that same thing. Like you find those. That's why I love, you know, any kind of art is those, you're waiting for those little moments where, you know, something just happens and it's a better idea than you've ever.
Serendipity, in it.
Yeah. You're just kind of in the, you know, and you kind of anything that comes your way. That's exciting.
When people say to me like, "Oh, well," even I've said it in the past, like, "Oh, I wish I could have changed a particular moment in my past," but it's like, but because of the butterfly effect, it would have changed everything today.
Exactly. I've heard that from a lot of people, you know, "Oh, I wish I'd never done this." Well, you wouldn't be in this exact moment. You wouldn't know that wasn't a good thing. That might have happened to you later because you learned early enough that wasn't good. People want to, like, it's funny, people look at unpleasant experiences in their life as something bad when actually it got you to a better way of being or thinking or wherever you are. But there's no version of that not happening. You know?
That's what I mean. That's what I say, try and explain to people who are easily offended these days. I'm thinking it's good to be offended because it further reinforces your values of what you. I don't know if it's the same thing in London, but this whole woke culture thing in America it's horrible for art. It's horrible for film, horrible for comedy. Were you guys into Norm Macdonald? Did you know him over there at all? Loved him.
Yeah.
Horrible to lose him. I mean, he was a master, comedy master. And I mean, there really was such genius there. But also he had to be really careful. His way of thinking was just whatever, you know, he loved to throw people off and he loved to question whatever was normal. I mean, the great role of a comedian, if somebody's really good, was they get everybody, you know, they show you a reflection of how absurd you're being, basically.
Yes.
And yeah, I think that's what a really good comedian will do. A decent comedian will make you laugh, but a really great comedian comes along every once in a while. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think of. I used to know a lot more British comedians than I do, but certainly from your past. I mean, like Monty Python. I think part of the reason that they were so famous was that they just questioned everything that was kind of crazy about your culture.
Yeah, I mean,
Old tropes that weren't useful anymore, but they were part of the old guard, and people, I think, had affection for like an older way of being.
my dad told me the uproar in '77 when The Life of Brian came out. An absolute uproar.
You should see it. But again, go to YouTube, and if you look up Monty Python Life of Brian, it's Michael Palin and John Cleese actually meeting with like the Archbishop at the time. I can't remember his name, but and then some other guy, but two guys up on the church in this talk show, and it's fascinating. And these two guys make such fools of themselves, not Cleese and Palin. They're actually holding it together pretty well. You can't believe these guys are offended. And they go, "Did you see the film?" And they said, "We wouldn't look at such second-rate trash." You know, what are you talking about? You haven't even seen it. You know?
I love that Monty.
But it was just on principle, and it's actually not about Christ. It was really, but it's fascinating. It's a great thing to see.
It was more about hero worship and the sort of bureaucracy that was going on back then.
They were, and I think they showed in the movie, you see a little bit of Sermon on the Mount, but they said they had a decent actor who was playing Jesus, and the Sermon on the Mount was done straight. They were always respectful to Christ, because they thought they actually were going to try to make a Holy Grail movie about Christ, but they realized it's not funny. He's too cool a guy to make fun of. It's the people's reaction to Christianity that's absurd. And so they had, like, at the back of the crowd, those guys the people are just like, "Well, I say, blessed are the cheesemakers."
And that goes to show the sort of, the bastardization of religion over the centuries,
Yes.
And I love that. And I love the biggest dickus is what gets me every time.
Oh,
Those extras trying to keep it together.
Oh man. Yeah.
You'll think is risible when I say the name.
Was it bigger stickles? Visible. Like he had a trouble with those R's. Yeah, he was kind of.
He had a wife, Well, it's funny. I don't want to give too much away in my book, but there's a scene where there's a guy going on a gun spree. He a bit like Michael Douglas falling down, kind of that sort of tone. But he has a speech impediment. And just for a joke, I thought, I'm going to try and have him say really like big 4-syllable words for no reason. And it just made it funny, unintentionally funny.
Great. I love stuff like that.
So I thought, he's got a speech impediment. Why would he use these big words? One of them was remunification. He struggles to say the word.
Yeah.
Remunification. It's like,
I remember the first time I ever saw, because I think comedy can sometimes be used to make a scary movie, not the way that I made a scary movie, but the one that we were discussing, but like a genuinely intense movie, even more intense. Like if you've ever seen Bonnie and Clyde, did you ever see that with Warren?
No.
Great movie, and the first movie that Gene Wilder was in. So it's this intense drama, and I remember when they made it, they were really into like it. They didn't want to make a movie that was at all pro-gun, because it was made in the late '60s, so there were a lot of riots and unrest and stuff like that. And they're making a movie that's taking place in the '30s, but they wanted it to speak to a modern audience, and they didn't want to glorify guns the way that like war movies had. So they had or like gangster movies, they wanted it to be the opposite, so that when the two heroes or anti-heroes buy it in the end, like the sound of guns, or like you really hear the like it's sort of like what Spielberg did with Saving Private Ryan, like that first scene on the beach.
Oh yeah.
That's not like a war movie. That's like, we're going to take as close as we can. You never knew what was coming. And it was horror. It was pure horror. And in the middle of that, to have a character, I mean, nobody knew who Gene Wilder was, but you could, as soon as you see him, he's too soft for this world, and he doesn't belong there, but they've kind of kidnapped him along with these other people. And horrible things happen to them. Horrible things, but they're kind of comic characters, and they went on to be great comic like certainly Gene Wilder went on to be a great comic actor. But in this movie, the comedy is used, it almost makes everything more absurd and and crazy and scary. It makes it closer to like, you don't laugh at the Joker. He's not like a clown. He's not there to make you laugh. He's trying to scare you, like war paint. That's the feeling that you get. Like it's something that doesn't fit in this world, and you actually worry for this guy.
Yeah, it's a special kind of talent to have, whether it be a filmmaker or a writer or an actor, to be able to be so passionate about the thing that you're doing, to be able to break it down in its fundamental forms. And
to say, why am I doing this? Because the most dangerous thing is you feel inspired by source material, or some guy reads your book, decides he wants to make a film out of it, and has to, he's beginning a 2-year process. So if everything goes right, in 2 years, after he gets all the money and gets all the production design set, now he's on the set and he's got to begin directing. He's got to find what it was that originally, that feeling that you aroused in him that made him provoked him to do all this stuff. That's just discipline, I think,
Yeah.
and to be able to, like you said, you're injecting bits of absurd humor something like that would work in a movie if it was placed inside of a scene that was really, really intense. And then something like that happens and provokes an uneasy laugh that actually makes, after the laugh, it kind of gets caught in your throat and you sink a little further down into the drama. I mean, I think the guy who directed Bonnie and Clyde, who was Arthur Penn, I think, they knew exactly what they were doing. Like, they cast these people who, actually were great with comedy, but they're entering a dark world. So really what he's doing is he's setting these people are defenseless, and you realize they're just fish in a barrel, really. They don't have a chance. And it's, and then it works on so many levels. You love Bonnie and Clyde because they're played by, Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway, who's like drop dead gorgeous in this thing. And you love them, but they're the bad guys. And so you have to see them being abusive too. And then they sort of get theirs in the end. And it's a very confusing movie. It's very emotional.
We'll check it out because I am curious now. You have piqued my interest.
Thanks. Yeah.
So I'll be sure to check that out. Well, Craig, it's been an absolute pleasure. And I have a feeling, our paths will cross again soon enough.
Hope so.
It's nice to, all these years, you've seen someone on the screen and here I am talking to you. So it's nice. It's funny how the universe works.
It's great. It's a great thing. It means a lot to me. I don't take that lightly. So I'm glad, and I hope our paths do cross again.
And best of luck with your upcoming project. Oh,
listen, on.
Sorry, say again.
What album is he listening to?
Oh, it's just some. You can hear it, Jesus. It's just some like chill, jazzy hip hop stuff I just put on in the background to soothe my soul. I get nervous, I try to keep it low so no one can hear it. Fuck it. It's a pleasure. Pleasure to meet you.
But I hope we can do it again. Thanks a lot.
I apologize for the audio problems that we might have had.
Oh, no,
that was smooth. That was smooth sailing, man.
We were squares bouncing around. Like, we got it.
Yeah. And best of luck with your future project. I know it's under wraps, but
thank you very much.
We'll keep an eye out for it, and we'll be there. Yeah. We'll be there on the day of release. All right, Craig. Well, I'll give you a message on Instagram in 10 days' time with a link on Amazon if you're interested.
Great. No, I'd love that. And I'll help. And I look forward to it.
All right. Enjoy the holidays, whether it be Christmas or Hanukkah, whatever it is.
Okay. Thank you. You too. And